I'm Captain David Cohen, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
David, what's up, man? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
I'm great. How's fishing?
It's been spectacular. It's been a really killer season. Every season seems to be a little bit better than the last
Really?
few years.
How many years you been doing it in Miami?
Now this is my 7th year full time.
7th year. And so in all of those times, what do you have one thing that stands out that either that you've learned or that has changed since you started?
So much has changed. I wouldn't say one thing. And I've learned a ton. I like yourself. I like to learn every trip, but fish are smarter. You know, the tarpon are a lot smarter than they were 7 years ago, big time. And every year passing, they feel like a little bit smarter than the year before. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know what other guides out there, but it's just not, you got to do a little something different maybe to get the same production. So,
yeah. And so this year, what has been working for you this year?
This year, a little bit more. A lot of stuff I do, I'll just go over later on if you want about some of the styles that I do. But one thing, let's go over it now. So I love tarpon fishing. This is my second time. God bless your soul for having me. Because I'm just as passionate about this crazy deal as you got to be. Little nuts is what I've realized. 7th year in, like before, I'm like, okay, I'm getting into the gig. I love tarpon fishing, but to put a body on board to go for the expectation. I listen to Croca talked about the tarpon, that little piece of podcast about why we love them so much and the jumps and the just unpredictability of each fish. And that's the coolest thing I got out of that was like, you know, you get this fish and it'll do this, but this fish does that. And they're all different and they're all powerful. But I'd say, so to break it down, like tarpon, if I see, like I love watching fishing shows. That's all I do, you know, my whole life since Spanish Fly. This is 45 years old this in October. Still just no matter what, I like to listen to what everyone else is doing, how they're doing it. My style is just different. I see a little different than everybody. They're all the same, but encompassing of what I talked to Ray Rocher. I had the honor not that long ago, you know, it just the R&R tell you he's a genius and we just started shooting the shit about, so to speak, about just fishing in general. And when you don't grow up, I didn't grow up around a lot of the industry. I got we talked last time, I got degrees in exercise physiology. I was a trainer. So everything is my own that I do because I don't have anybody to talk to. So I kind of just go with what's working that day. And if it's not working, then let's try something different and just go with there. And since I've been doing it full time, I've gotten to put so much of those pieces together of like what I was doing before, but like in a bigger scale. And now with people. So with tarpon, I'm all over. This is what I'm going to run around and come back as usual. But with the tarpon, it seems pretty systematic. Like no matter what, the fish is real, does what they want to do, and they're crazy. But they're generally the same type of what they do. Most of the time, you know, that's what's so cool why we do it. So what I like to do is we hook up. I've learned over the years, the last few years in general, having the rod in your hand is never good. No matter how much I want to have that hook set and how much I want to reel down the circle hook and I want to do, I've learned that Rodney is never sleeping. And as long as you have your drag set accordingly, not too tight, not too loose, but you kind of get that gauge and to feel, I couldn't tell you what numbers they have to be, but when that goes, generally speaking, it's hooked in the button, like 18 out of 19 times, 19 out of 20 times in the schnoz, which is, that's everything already. So now you're not.
So what you're instructing your clients to do is to leave it in the rod holder, never touch it until the drag's going out.
And that's trying to get in. Now you've got to be comfortable with your clientele to lock that. And that's like all guides. You have to be really own your craft, know that they're here for you and not letting them do what they think they need to do. And because you want to ultimately catch the fish for them, because the other way is you go home to the dock and nothing happens. I mean, we
have people like if you found out that 18 out of 19 times you're hooking the fish in a way that you can actually land it right in the button. It's not chafing the leader. It's hooked securely, and that's coming from the rod holder. It seems like that's a really, really good way to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have customers that don't want to do it that way?
Yeah. And I usually, and of course, and I've learned, don't be that guy either. I'll give them probably more than most instruction before the tarpon trip comes. Sometimes it comes back to bite me because it's not such a fast bite. And I've went over all this beforehand and nothing happens. But I've learned that, you know what, no matter what, let them not be sleeping when the time comes. Let them tell them this is what's going to happen. If it happens, God willing, this is what's going to happen. Be ready for this, to be here, to reel this line up. And this is the crazy chaos, organized chaos that's going to take place. So I've got that in their head back there, even though they think I'm a crazy person talking like about all this magic that's going to happen. They've never done this before, but it kind of gets them ready just in case. Because if not, I've learned, you're telling stuff, shouting, reel this line in, reel the line down. They don't know nothing's coming in. It's all, and the fish jumps up. It's exciting, but I'm pissed because I need to catch them. That's like, like I'm sure you as a guy, like I just have to catch everyone. And I hear it after the vote, after the end of the video. Everybody's pretty cool. Like, we lost and we got a leader touch. Yeah. You hear me, and I have to edit that each time. I don't know what's in me, but I need to catch that thing, even though it's like caught 3. Because so getting way back to, so we hook this fish, get on top of the fish immediately when he's hooked. So the rod hits, the rod's in the rod holder, bent over, loaded, running. Now, what I do, I just throw it out there, what I've heard Russell does, and a lot of guys don't do, is I started off with like 1-2 rods, then 3. 3 is a lot. 3 is a lot. That's a lot to deal with. 4 is a little bit more, but my odds started going up at 4. And then 5, it started to go up more. 6, it went up more. So now he's like 7, 8 rods in a 21-foot boat. So you're like, you look like a catfish. You look like you're looking for this guy's fishing for crappies out here, or whatever. And I do it every time like that. And all I do is systematically go through the lines and rotate, keeping fresh baits. And I'm never really looking at rods because Rodney's doing it. Before, the bails used to be open and I didn't hear it. I have to come over. I used to have this theory before. If it's closed, they eat it. And then they'd feel the leader and they'd spit it. So the rod would come down like tuna and come back up. And if I don't have the Dorados, but then I got gut hooked fish. Didn't want that. I was doing that too much. They were gut hook. I hated that. Going to cry. So, and the other thing is you don't hear them. So now Rodney's doing it for me. And now I've realized with having that much, your odds go up so much, that the doubles happen. And that's what the last 3 years I've gotten, I'm sure, doubles that I don't know, maybe I would say 15 to 22 fish to the boat every season, which is like years before I never did that. I never got 2 to the boat. I did it maybe 10 times in my life, 8, 10 times randomly. Then I started doing it 1, 2, 3, 4 trips in a row, 5 trips in a row. And I go, wow, this is
what you're accrediting that to is fishing the multiple rods.
You couldn't be in the game without 6 rods. If I only had 3 rods, I wouldn't be getting so many doubles. But I have 7 rods out. So when the school comes by, thank you guys, whoever I listen to, but I love you, all my people. But that's what it is when one eats, the next one eats, no matter what. Like, so at the point last year, I was doing this for the 2nd year in a row. And I could call up like a tribe. I hate to say it, like, it's going to happen. And I'd wait. And so years ago, I didn't get so many doubles. I always had, for about 8 years, I had a lot of rods, but I started pulling them in too fast. So I would hook up, pull them all in, and I wouldn't give myself time. Now I realize, wait. If you wait about a minute and all the rods are out, another one will go down, most likely.
So let's talk about your setup. Like, that's an interesting thing. You got a 21-foot boat. You're fishing 7 or 8 rods. So how do you have these rods spread around the boat?
Any way I could get them, because current wind is such a pain.
Changes every day.
It changes every day. So the calm days are great, but then wind's no good because the lines aren't laying right and the baits are whatever it is. And so the idea is that they're spaced out, and it's not always. It's just the most I can get away with. But let's just say 4 or 5 at a minimum. It's never like 3 or 2. It's always a good number of baits. If I can get away with more, I'll throw them out the front towards the trolling. So now when I'm set up, we hook up 1 or 2, whatever it is. I'm clearing all the other lines. I'm immediately getting after that fish. And the trolling motor, the Tarova that I got, or any kind of trolling motor, has been such a game changer for the tarpon, because now I'm not on the wheel anymore. Now I'm on the button. Now I could talk to you, and we're in the front. So now we're in the front. We're chasing the fish. You don't ever fight a fish from far away. that's where problems arise. If you sit there and by the time you're talking and you're behind and the fish is jumping out there, you should be reeling. The guide should be running after the fish. The angler should be reeling as fast as they can to get all the line, get on top of him, just behind him, to get consistent pressure for however long, 30 and 2 hours it takes. But you're not hurting that. You're not putting anything on. You see these, especially when they're over 150, they're such a strong, they're so friggin' strong. You don't do anything to them until you're constantly on them. And that's where I tell them so I started off with a pretty decently tight drag to get the hook in them on the rod holder. Now I've backed off and I'm forcing the tie. And this is where it's exhausting. I don't know if I'll do it my whole career, but I feel like if we catch them, this is the way we need to do it, is teaching them how to fight a fish with no drag, with backing the drag off and using their hand. And if they reel, it's going to make the ding, ding, ding sound. And because it's really against the drag and spinning the line, and they can't do that. So they're unable to, I'm going to force them. So they have to now drop the rod. I have to tell them to take the slack out of the line, put the finger on the spool, come up and repeat.
Right.
And then we get all the way down to
So why do you do that? Because I asked that because I posted a video on Instagram about the same thing, about how I like to fight them with very little drag, palming the reel. It was the comments were loaded with guides and other people that just did not like that approach. You got $1,000 spinning reel there, and you're working it with your hand. I mean, those were like a lot of the comments. But
I love it.
I have my reasons for wanting to do that. I'm wondering what yours are.
Yes, I don't know, and I'm sure of it, of any person that's ever is old school. I would say old school. That's, let's say 35 or older, 40, I'm 45, 40 or older. They'll realize, I don't care if I have a Stella, I happen to be sponsored by ROT, very fit. I don't care what reel you have. It's just kind of like golf, whatever golf club you could give them, catch the same principle. So the reason why I always use the palm, and it's imperative with the tarpon, and the tarpon you could bring up, you can apply to the black grouper, to the mutton snappers, to everything after the initial fight. Those deep water fish, yes, you have to have a lockdown, but once you get out of harm's way, you better back that thing off. The reason why is because the fish, the tarpon, number one, we'll get back to the tarpon, we'll get all other fish of why I use the hand on the spool. Because at the end of the fight, you can never account for the drag. When you twist, nobody could adjust in time. They could take their finger off in time, but they can't adjust the drag in time. And if that fish, 150 pounder, decides a shark's on him or whatever, he goes ape. If you let go of the rod, the line, and my principle, I've said this since I started guiding, is once the hook is in his 9 times out of 10, if a circle hook is through his nose, it's not going anywhere. So when it goes to jump, let it be slack. You can open the bail, you can do anything. But if you have any tension on your end, which is a tight drag, a set drag, it's on your end. He's jumping. He's using you to dislodge the hook. I don't care if you're not bow. You don't even have to be bowing. You could be bowing, but you could feel on your end and the rod's shaking. He's using you against you. So if the line's just flying off, he's just falling with the circle hook. You're good. You're golden.
Yeah.
I had a fish the other day, a couple of weeks. I'll get back to the crazy double header story, but a lot of stories. You could go on and on. But the idea is, so now you're on top of them, and the guide's behind them, and the fishes. So you're always going to have. The reason why I always say have your finger on the spool is you want to let that fish go. When he's by the boat and he takes these, even if it's a largemouth bass, takes these little surges. If you actually set it on something, you might not adjust it, and it's just a little, one kick too many, and the line's not extended. Hook pulls, line breaks, so your finger goes off, and then you're forced to understand fighting a fish on feel of how he's pulling, whatever the species is. You're at one with the animal with the finger on the spool, one and one. So now if it's a mutton stuff, you could let him go, and you'll understand those thrusts and when they're going to happen based off of the kill kicks and thereafter, after he goes. And if you're not, that's why I see these guys that have their hand on the crank, on their reel, and they got their set, and they're making noise, and there's just, I hate to say it, professional guides, and they're going to love me for this, but they're making the noise, and they're cranking. If it runs back down and then the fish pops off, it's on you. You didn't let it go. And if you had your hand on the spool with a light drag like you do, or and the people like Jose or Rick, a lot of the old school shows, we didn't have, I think talked to this the last podcast. We didn't have braid. We had 12 pound pink Andy with 40 pound leaders. And you better use your finger on the spool because it's a slow dance.
The reels weren't very good either at that time compared to what we have today.
No, horrible.
We're way better. But even with, like, I use Daiwa and they're amazing. I mean, even with the best Daiwa reels, you can adjust the drag to whatever you want. But as that fish is coming in, particularly a tarpon green at the boat, they're either going to jump, and if you have it set to where you can really pull against this fish, then in my opinion, that drag is too tight if that fish takes off and jumps or a shark gets on them or something like that, because you have to be able to pull on them. So I like to really be able to pull really, really hard by palming the reel, but I want to be ready at any moment for that fish to kick off hard. And if I have the drag set hard enough to where I can pull that fish backwards in the water, typically that's a little too much for it if it really takes off or if it jumps right there. So I like to have a very, very loose drag. But boy, that didn't go over well with the people on YouTube. They thought that was just the worst thing ever. So, but here's the thing: like, you and I are a little older, and we had to learn how to fish with reels that weren't very good, and 12-pound Andy and that kind of stuff that wasn't anywhere nearly as strong as today. Now, if you started today and you learned how to use one of these really high quality reels today, maybe I would feel a little bit differently if that's how you learned how to fish, right? Yeah. I don't know, but
if you absolutely
fish the other way, I don't know. I've just brought a lot of fish to the boat, with palming the reel. And I've also seen a lot of people that I'm not comfortable. They don't have the feel that you cannot, like, there's so many customers that you want to teach them how to palm the reel, but you just know, oh, this is going to be a disaster. This person is never going to let go of the reel in time. So we're just going to tighten the drag down a little bit, and then I'm going to loosen it a little bit. Then I'm going to tighten.
There's an art to that, like no other, like you said, right? The art of you knowing what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And you said it perfectly.
But they, there are customers where there's just, they're lucky to have hooked this fish to begin with. They're really lucky to be even just holding on to the rod right now. Like, this is a fish that is literally 150 times bigger than anything they've ever caught in their entire life, right? Yeah, and so to start introducing these advanced things like hold the reel and pull back, that's not going to really happen. Yeah. I mean, you just have to understand that going in, that's not going to happen. So let's just work on, tightening and loosening and tightening and loosening. And I guess I could probably do that. It just seems easier for me to palm the reel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you learn, and then they'll come out of it. You'd be surprised, and females in general, they get it quick as hell. Or just anybody that's receptive to listening. But you said it perfectly earlier on. If you're reeling hard enough to move the fish, if he makes a big run on you, you're going to be in trouble. So I use, in the early stages when the fish is far away, I use those nice reels, my Daiwa type reel, to pull the fish back to me. I'll have it pretty locked down. But as soon as that distance we close that gap and I'm there, now we're back to normal. I used it for what it's for, and we could pull. And now I know this is where crap hits the fan, so to speak, and we need to be light on the because he's gonna jolt off and have those little bursts. And then what I've really also realized helped more than anything is positioning on the boat. Always be in the front of the boat. Never, as soon as the client is in the middle of the boat at any point in time, use your trolling motor to your advantage and spin the motor around, because now the tarpon, the first stage is the jumping. Then after that, he's most likely, if you're in open water, the only thing he's going to do is use you. The connections are sound, the hook's in them. Now the boat's going to use against you. So make sure the motors, so most people get caught off balance and they get on one side of the boat and they can't get over. So always shorten. So I'm always pushing my clients, moving them. Now I got to the point where my repeats, which I love, they know you got to be ahead of the fish. So if you're fighting a tarpon from behind you and his tail is this, in the early stages of like a down and dirty, I understand rubbing it across because it's impeding the tail motion. But now later in the fight, I never want to be behind him. That's where hooks pull. There's too much tension. So now I want to be the body here. I don't want to be ahead at the very end. I want to be ahead of him. So especially a 180-pound tarpon or 200-pound tarpon, he weighs so much. So you can't pull him backwards. He's not going to come up. You got to get the head up. So you're constantly running ahead of the fish. I'm trying to get all the leader down to his face, because if there's any line, he's going under the boat and doing whatever he wants to do. So you're going to get right on top of it and just try to lift slowly, but you're doing it like a 10-pound bass. You would be very, very delicately, because the line will break. It's like, but you're kind of just lifting slowly. But yeah, those little details about back years ago, I'd maybe fight behind him a little bit more, and the fish would kick off and a hook would pull, and I go, oh, he was right there. But I'm like, it's angle. The whole Crocus said angular. The game is angle. If you could get the angles, and that's where the doubles and under the lines and over the lines all come into play. You see, it's seen it a million times over. You're like, it's fine. He's going this. I could see. That's the closest rod to. That's all that really matters. He's probably after that. And he weighs so much. It's not like it's a bass he's going to wrap you up with 2 lines. They're taut. They're like this. So as long as you go in and out, you're good. So it's fairly, there's something to it.
When you're leaving the rods out in order to get a double, and say you do get a double, are you continuing to leave the rods out, or then at that point?
Yes. I've gotten 3 triples. Yes. Sure. I haven't got the triple to the boat yet. I have not got the triple. I've had them, but it's tough. And I haven't had enough anglers. My dad had a triple we had last year on, and I was drying off, and we hook up with the third, and I got it in the rod holder, and it's like, but yeah, I'm definitely, it is in my future to get the triple, because it's like one of those things you do a bunch of doubles, but the double that I talked to you about was epic. I got 2 150s. I posted on my 2 150s to the boat, 2.5 hours, and that is stretched out. So that's when you have to just take a little bit of whatever you can back, dump the other guy out, and vice versa for hours. And it was a true story. We finally, one guy, you saw the picture, he was dead. He was like laid there. He says, I'm done. I can't do anything anymore. And ultimately, a lot of these guys can't catch them. I don't want to say they can't catch them themselves, but I'm using the rod at the end of the day. I got my left hand on the rod, so they're reeling down and I'm pulling up. People are done after 150-pound tarpon, after an hour and a half. Normal, unless you work out every day, there's no way. You're just, even if you do have a workout every day, my buddies that go to the gym, LA Fitness, I've taken a lot of them, recruited some clients, and they said there's nothing like the continuous. And they're jacked, they all some juiced up, and they're done. Like halfway through,
there is that, but then there's also, if you watch somebody that's not really great at fighting a fish, they're not really very efficient, right?
No.
They're pulling and pulling and tugging and not breathing correctly, and they're compared to somebody that's caught thousands of them. And you don't have to be that. It's not a game of really strength. It's a game of angles and pulling at the right time, and you don't really have to pull that hard. Like if the fish is taking off and you're pulling against that fish as it's taking off, you're really not doing anything other than just making it more difficult on yourself. I mean, that's where the reel is doing everything. The reel in the boat, it's pulling the drag off the reel, and if that's heavy enough, then it's pulling the boat with it. But that's where I see a lot of people. Like have you ever seen somebody that has never wrestled before, and they get in a wrestling match, like especially when you're like in high school or something, and within 10 or 15 seconds, they're breathing so heavy, because everything is just locked up tight. And then you get a really experienced wrestler, and they're very relaxed. Like everything is relaxed. They could literally wrestle for hours, and this person can't wrestle for 30 seconds, right? Because they're not even breathing correctly. They're not even breathing. They're just, everything is locked up.
They're letting everything go.
Happen with people.
Same, like great analogy.
Hook a fish and hook a big fish that they've never fished for before, like a tarpon, and they're not breathing. All their muscles are tight. They're trying to pull against the fish when there's no one in the world that could pull against that fish. It is swimming as fast as it can away, and they're pulling as hard as they can against it. No, they're just getting tired.
No,
right?
They're killing themselves, and they're, more importantly, we're talking about catching the fish. I always say they're messing up the integrity of the line early on. That's what I always say. Well, if you pull too hard early, wait till the last seconds of your fight. Remember, you were fighting like a madman early. You probably lost it because you just didn't let them run early. And that's what I always say that. Just
what about the baits and the hooks and the leaders that you're using? Has everything changed since you started? Have you refined your program a little bit? What do
A
you?
little, of course, the leader, like the average person with the leader line, I was telling you that is just totally underestimated everything about the tarpon leader. Like I started going up over 15 feet like 10 years ago, and I've went to like now I go 24 foot. Like it's like mutton snapper
24-foot
fishing.
leader.
24-foot leaders. I have to coil them up like we're mutton snapper fishing, and they're over on the side. If you saw before the strippers go, it's a problem because when they're open, they're all over the boat. You're tripping over. It's not easy to deal with, but it's everything. Once you do that, you don't go back. You don't go to 8-15 because you realize. Like I only used 18 or 20 last year. I employed a couple 24s because that's what I like to change things up. And sure enough, it got more hits because it's laying, not always, but it's just like, these fish see braid, like they're around the boat, they see braid, and baits are so much more natural. Like I remember I saw your podcast with the crab situation. I don't do crab fishing or any of this or generally speaking, but I understood the principle of how it's laying with a long leader because it's laying the short leader. So that's anybody that's tarpon fishing from this audience. If you're not going to hurt yourself from 6 feet more long of leader. It might be a pain to deal with, and that's what a lot of people I've seen fishing. They don't deal with long leaders or a certain knot because in the guide or whatever it is. And these are small variables in catching the fish. Like they're like little pet peeves to mine, but like there's certain things like if you know your knots are sound, like don't go and make them because it's a little cuter. And, make it think, who cares about that? Reel down hard, get that knot through the freaking thing, get it in the spool. And now you have your leader and that's another reason. 20-foot long leader.
Yeah.
Now your leader's in the spool, and now you don't have to deal with your braid anymore. You don't have 50-pound braid. You have your leader.
Have you thought about just like going all fluorocarbon? Like you could fill your spool with fluorocarbon.
But it would be too much, not enough line capacity.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's right. Yeah, so you got the line capacity with the braid to get that 300-yard run or whatever, 250-yard run, and then you've got a good 20-foot. And the more important, there's so many good things that come from long leaders, but the shock absorption. So now you have that huge stretch, unbelievable amount of stretch, which before you had a little bit of braid in the scenario. Now that took the braid out of the equation completely, and especially boat side with the jumps. So now the leader's in your spool, brother thing. So that's there's those that I would say those are some big changes. I mean, like in the last 5 years, I'd say I never used because they're a pain. Much longer leader. And then what knot are you using from the braid to this long leader?
I've always used the double figure 8 loop, which I loved when you put that on there. The double figure 8 loop on anything over 50, like you said, 60. Light leader, not so well with it. Braced.
To the hook or what?
To the hook. To the
hook. So what about to the braid?
To the braid, I use a Bimini twist, 40 turn Bimini. Always use and I like to make them depending on but pretty long, like because a lot of times they get stuck and stuff, and the Bimini helped me big time, and that shock. So I use a Bimini to a double. I use a double uni still. I've used the and it's a big clunky knot, and I know it's coming when it's coming. I tell them put your rod tip down real hard in it. Occasionally you'll get some. I had one guy, I hate this knot, but he doesn't know anything about fishing, but he did. I hate this knot. This knot I guarantee you, I haven't had a fish break at the braid in long time. It doesn't happen. Yeah. So like when it doesn't happen, you don't.
Well, you're tying that with a doubled line too. So like
yes,
that should be at the knot. It should be twice as strong as the line right there. I mean,
and I love how you do your knots, bro. It was awesome. You did one with I remember I listened to with the regular, which slips. Back in the early braid, the double uni never worked. It slipped. I needed that Bimini or the Spider to hold to hold it. But then after that, you're not going to get that slippage. The key is the Bimini. Like you have to.
The key that Bimini is the key. Also, I've noticed as I've done all these different tests is that even the manufacturer, like a different braid with a different fluorocarbon, might test differently than what you're currently using. So, like, I don't know. I like to have exactly what I'm going to use. I like to have that in my workshop, right, where I'm going to rig all my tackle. I don't like messing around with different things because if you get confident with a certain knot, with a certain manufacturer of braid and a certain manufacturer of fluorocarbon, and then you get to the boat and you've got something different, it might not behave the way that it did at home on the scale, right? So, I mean, I just use Daiwa fluorocarbon and Daiwa braid, like that. I don't really use anything other than that. So I'm confident with the knots that I can tie with that braid and that fluorocarbon. And honestly, I would have to go back and test all of these knots again to know, and it wouldn't surprise me if the results would be a little bit different if you used, a different fluorocarbon and a different braid, because a lot of it is the finish on the braid and a finish on the fluorocarbon. Some are slicker than others, and so some knots don't necessarily hold the way that they do on other knots. You can be perfectly confident in some manufacturers together, and another one might slip right out.
No, and that's why you have to just
but that double uni is like the most consistent of anything that we tie.
For me, it always. I'm glad I hear it from you, because I just see it, and the double uni has always been. And I went to the FG, and don't get me wrong, I didn't tie enough of them, do it long enough to be, but it only took me one or two slippage to go.
Well, see, that's one that does, I think, make a big difference in the manufacturer that you're using, because some fluorocarbon and some braid, again, it's the slickness, and sometimes you don't get that that braid to bite into the fluorocarbon because it's too slick. Either the fluorocarbon's too slick, or more than likely it's the braid. Like, there used to be a braid that it was called Stren Super Braid. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember it came out. I didn't use it,
and it was rough. I mean, this stuff was rough. It was like sandpaper. But dude,
it held.
You could tie an FG knot with like 6 turns, and that stuff would hold.
You grass down.
But it wasn't like a line that you really liked, because, I mean, I don't know. That was a pretty decent line.
Yeah, it doesn't cast that great, but who cares?
At the time, it was one of the better braids. Now we've far surpassed that with what we have now as braids. But that rough finish, no,
it's still in the back of your head. You still think about it.
No FG came out with that stuff.
That's awesome.
But what about the hook? Have you changed the hook?
The hook, I have. I'll get it. I have. I was an owner guy forever, Mutu guy forever. And this is my secret, I've had a couple of guides, well-known guides, ask me about hook stuff, didn't pass. The trocar is it. Your trocar that you said is that hook has changed the game. For me, the TK4, the offset one, I used that like 4 years ago. I got to talk this to, it's one thing I paid for, the trocars. But but you get them on Amazon and not that. But the idea with the circle hook and the tarpon, in my eyes, is totally misled on the size of the fish and the amount and the size number that you need. I have
bigger or smaller. What do you think?
There's a number. There's the bigger, smaller, always smaller. Bigger. I spend so much time in my life on fish. So 5.0 was always my standard hook, like whatever. Then I went to 6.0 for a little bit, and then for a long time, I started doing, because of guilty on social media and everything, 7.0, 8.0, 9.0s for tarpon. And so many bad things happened when I went up from 7.0, 8.0, 9.0. The hook is first of all, you're not even going to get the bites you need to get, because now your hook size is up, those megalops eyes. Now you just missed a bite or two for the day that you'll get bites. You'll miss one. Then that gap is too big. So I found 6.0. The 6.0 trocar TK4 is all I'll ever use. I don't ever use a 7.0 again in my life, because you could catch a 230-pound tarpon on a 6.0 and it won't, and it's tight. It's up in it, and it's wedged in his face. If you get a 7.0 and there's a little gap, he jumps, the hook flies out. The hook flies. Now he's got a bigger gap. It's unnecessary. I used to think it was necessary for bigger fish. I need 7.0, 8.0, big bait, big mullet, no. 6.0. That's all I use, and that's it. And
that's with a mullet?
That's with a mullet, with the biggest mullet you get, or biggest anything. And that's the cool part about it. A 6.0 is it's small enough you could use a crab, or you could use a shrimp, even a prawn shrimp you could use. So then when I started using the 6.0, I catch all my whatever. I love it. I catch all my little fish on 6.0s too, which is so cool. I could catch like little 20-pounders, and it kind of just throws the mythology about the eyesight out the window with the small, you need a smaller hook. But the generally is you'll see like it's just a really good hook. It's a really good tarpon hook. It sits. My odds were like, this is not, when they first started using that hook, they went up dramatically, like all around to the point where it's good. When it's in there, it's in there. It's through, whether it's little fish or, it's like it melts the freaking nose. It goes right through the other side. And I'm like, the first time I saw it, I was like, the Mutsu, don't get me wrong, owner, I had a lot of hooks, but rarely they go through the hard part of the mouth. This time, every time, it's like that. Yeah.
Every time. So do you keep log?
Yes. I've always kept a log. I've have not as in depth as thing, but yeah, it's pretty in depth.
But do you keep it in depth enough to be able to see that, like your hookup percentage, like when you changed to this hook, it went way up, and then when you went higher, it went down? Or is that just like
no? That's an all-in instinct. That was like a night and day situation. I like to say I still have my faculties a little bit to know when certain trips change the outcome of the whole business. Like a trip, you implore something, and that's what we've lived for. Then I go, wait, that can't be good to be true.
Give me an example of a trip that changed everything for you.
That changed everything. Well, I mean, obviously the 3 or 4th rod trip, when I started putting that 4th rod out, that was oh my God, and then you start to, catch fish with multiple rods, and you realize that you just don't get tangled. And if you do get tangled, what's the worst thing you do? You cut the line, and it's a charter he's got their tarpon on the line that you waited for. And I was just, and the more you do something, the more you're like, whatever. Everybody was looking at like anxiety driven. David, this is crazy. I have an old man friend that's in the hospital now. Don, bless his soul, had a heart transplant. He's a retired firefighter, but he's hopefully he'll listen to this. But he's always been there since day one for like 25 years in this backwater area. And I was always the one with like 10 rods. He wants the anxiety. No, 2, 3. No, okay. Because when you do something, you just, what can we make the most of what we're doing here? It's like, it gets like anything. You want to make it hard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say that the line, I would say, so everything, whether it be the hook or like a loop knot, like the double figure 8 from the uni knot, like a loop knot, that's everything on a circle hook for me. Like if I'm just tying, or I used to snell them a lot, and snelling's good too. But I really find that the loop double figure 8, just the way it rolls over in a certain way, and and you could go back and relive some of these things just to see if what you're doing is right. But you start to do it enough that you realize that I think. But yeah, there's what else could I say that's really just the trolling motor, knowing. When you start to do it, you do things by chance. The first time I I don't want to blow up a spot. So I used to run after the fish, but then I blow up all my fish around me. So that's when I started to early use the trolling motor, just not for the fighting the fish, just because I didn't want to scare them for the next fish. And then you realize, wait, because the trolling motor is a pain. You don't know how to use the trolling motor in the beginning. It's like you're going right, you're going left. But then when you start to get good with your equipment, you're like, oh, you're going to the back, number 10, woo, and the fish is in the back, and we're doing this the whole trip. And now he can't get to the prop. He can't. Little things like that are, I didn't do that years ago. Play with my chicks. Now I'm sitting there talking to the tarpon like, I'm sorry, your tricks are done. You're kind of like stuck. But yeah, good. And just know you're always using good rod, like you say all the time. Use heavy rods more than the reel. Reel is important. But the reel, even a 4,000 size reel, you could run after the fish, immediately get on top of him, get that 150 yards back, no matter how big he is, as long as you have a good driver. But use a rod that you could pull on him.
That's cool. And so what about how many days a week are you fishing this year?
This season, like it's been a little slower this season than the last 2, but I was like, I was going like 6-7 days a week. In the May and June, it's busy. I've gotten my repeats and busy.
So are you able to keep up your fitness while you're doing that?
I love to hiccup on. Yeah, I love we talk about it. Yes, it's not easy in the season. I train pretty damn hard in the
How
off.
do you do it? Where do you find the time to?
Where do I find the time after? There is no real time. Like you, I love all your stuff, but it's like discipline is freedom. That's how your shirt the other day on your podcast. But at the end of the day, there is no real like. You realize to find the time for fitness, especially if anything outdoors or anything that you're working using is a lot of energy. It's a must have for the mental, as I've always been. So yes, the body is completely broken to a point where I'm making involuntary noises and everything hurts. I'm like, ah, but you get yourself in there. So it's usually after like let's say 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock or so afternoon, I try to get it done. Or if you have to take a nap, just making sure I get that muscle group or whatever it is. Cause if more than 2 days goes by, I'm not normal. Like the third day, no matter how bang things up, I'm sure you're the same way. I don't know what to do with myself. So, but yeah, I just always, and the more I've done it and the more any person that works out, or now that I do the Tarpon thing, I couldn't imagine myself not working out and doing
it's hard,
this.
but man, I tell you what, when you're fishing 12 hours a day, whew, I mean, maybe you're not on the boat 12 hours a day, but between the time that you wake up,
you wake up, you're up.
You go fishing, you get off the boat, you got to clean up, you got to catch bait, you got to do other things. It's an easy 12-hour day, easy, if not 14, and maybe even longer. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of long days, and usually when you think you're going to have a short day, then you lose a bilge pump or something happens, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of the night, you got a flashlight in your teeth, and you're trying to fix something. But it can be hard to find the time to work out. But I find that it just helps everything, my mind as much as the body.
Yeah. And it goes. I feel like the mind, you said, starts to go as I don't work out. Like I just lose a couple neurons or something's not firing and I'm lethargic, and it goes hand in hand with bad eating and everything else. So it's like, if I don't, and if you lose it every year that passes, like I could see it's not as easy as it was the year before. And I got to work out harder than I did before to maintain less result. But
what do you eat when you're on the boat?
I like any guy, depending, even when the fishing's good, I'm not a big eater because
You're
very
not?
much what? No,
You think
not even.
most
I eat
guys are not eaters on the boat?
most guides. I don't know if they are. I know me. I am so focused until I get off of the boat. People look at me like, David. I had this Jeff Stillwell of the Salt Life, the owner that was just thing. He came out on with me. We caught some tarpon stuff, and he told me after the trip, he's like, he had a great time, and he hugged me. We had a relationship. He's like, you got to, you're serious. I'm very much, like you want to catch the fish for everybody. So I don't get hungry because the blood's not in the right spot. The blood is everywhere else. I'm just not. So I eat a lot of eggs before I go, like yourself. I'll have like 3-4 eggs. Maybe if I know it's a big day, I'll have a little, like a half an English muffin or like some little carb to throw me in there. And then I come back, I'll have big protein shake with protein. Like I don't eat a lot of carbs, just a lot of protein. But in that time period of like 10 out, which is not good, I'm usually fainting back because I was like, it's mental discipline. Like I have my protein shake and I have my leftover eggs or whatever in the cooler, but I have to go for my fasting or mentalness another 3 hours after we clean the boat. Then we get rewarded, and then we could do, it's like temporary suffering. I really feel a need for that I don't know why. It's definitely unnecessary most of the time. But yeah, thanks for thinking about everybody always says, eat something, David, have a banana, have a thing. I'm like, let's just catch our fish and take our pictures and, maybe,
What about bananas? Do you think they're good luck or bad luck?
I definitely don't think there's anything to that. No, I'm not against if you had it on the boat. If I would love to test that theory based on what's been going down this season because nothing's going to change. But whatever. Yeah, you can bring them on.
I think that it's kind of an interesting little funny thing, but I never get really all that hung up about it. I don't know if they are good luck or bad luck, but sometimes I think, well, why do we need to push our luck?
That's where I'm thinking. If I saw one on,
I don't bring them. But man, there's some Miami captains like Bouncer Smith. Man, that guy was and still is just it's almost like it's so much that it's almost like a shtick. Like
It is. It's got to be a shtick.
no
Unless
banana,
maybe not. I
you
saw
know?
him throw the boat. I saw this on AB. I just met AB.
Oh yeah,
His
yeah.
AB Raymond. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw him at the dock yesterday morning, and we shot the shit for like 30 minutes about just the industry, the game, motor. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But he yeah, I told him at the end of the conversation, utmost respect because of bouncer. Like it's just the idea of doing this thing for 50 years. It's like,
I know.
as we were talking about it, I'm like, it is, especially it's getting hotter here in Miami. Maybe not, maybe this is my life, but it just feels like it's, but it's a beautiful sport, beautiful game, but it's not for everybody. You got to love it. You got to really love the
Think you
deal.
can make it 50 years?
I don't, I, no, not at this rate. No, no. I think I'll want to change my avenue. I'm going down. I'm like, I just do a lot of thinking as I go. Like, I always want to do it because I definitely enjoy the gratification of what's going on now with the relationships and all of it. But yeah, I don't know. He's a tough cookie, man. Making 50 is like.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that have been at it for a long time, but he's one of the true ones of interest because he has so many stories and his mind is sharp and he remembers so many stories. I've had him on the podcast twice and they were two of my favorite ones. He just has a lot of stories, like, and they're vivid. He's a good storyteller also. And I read his book and it seemed like you read his book and it's just like you're talking to him, right now. Like you can tell. Like I bet this is like a first or second draft. Like he just tells the story just like he tells it to you and when he's talking to you. But he's a treasure. Like he's got so many stories and so many different things. But there's some other people still after it, doing it for a long time. Robert Trossett,
yes,
he's in great shape, man. Robert Trossett looks like he's in great shape and he's still out there.
I see RJ, his son is
they
kill it, man.
That's a multi-generational fishing family right there, and they're doing great.
Yeah. No, the Delph family I see is
the Delph's another one, and the Sears. I mean, Key West has got a number of multi-generational families that are fishing, and there's more. I've had a couple. I like that angle. I had the Bedells from Naples on. They're doing it like that. There's a lot. Even Rich's son Reed Tudor just got his captain's license, so there's going to be another.
I saw the passion in that episode that you did. He has it.
No, he's got it. He's definitely got it. He's hooked.
And like you said, which I thought was really cool, like you could bring yourself back. You're a couple years older than me, but you're like, it's when I was 15, certain experiences shape you. You're like that Tarpon adventure might just bring on who knows where it comes from. And that's what's so awesome about fishing.
It doesn't take much. And maybe you remember it differently, later, and you're like, it was that one trip that did it. And you can look at it and maybe it seems like that now, but maybe it really wasn't like that. Maybe it was a culmination. It probably was more like a culmination of a lot of trips, but there's one that you really remember. But I had a trip like that I really remember, a couple of them, that really made me like fishing. And then when you're a parent and you're looking at it and you're like, it would have been easy probably for my dad not to have gone on that trip. What if he hadn't have gone on that trip? Or what if we hadn't have gone on that trip? Maybe there would have been another one, probably would have been, but that's the thing about like parenting, and my kids are grown up now. On Friday, my daughter's getting married, even though she's young, but she's getting married on Friday. We just had a grandbaby. So like you're like talking about how you get older, you start thinking about different things, and I don't feel old, but all the surroundings, everything that's surrounding me makes me old, like a grandbaby. You shouldn't, like, if you're not old, you don't have a grandbaby. So I accept it. I'm getting older, but you start thinking about different things like parenting and just the choices you make when you spend time with your kids and how you choose to spend time with your kids. And fishing is a really good one. It's a really good way to spend time with your family. And like as a fishing guide yourself, you see a lot of people that are bringing, your father sons, father daughters, families coming down and fishing. And it's a special time, man. It really is. So I don't know. I hope that our next generation is going to be able to do the same things that we've been able to do. What about the business in Miami? How has it gotten better, worse, more competitive, less competitive?
It's definitely way more competitive. Even from 7 years ago, I could just see like the fishing booker that I'm on now, all that pops up there, and I'm like, who would, but that's like anything, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been it's been pretty damn, it's busy. It's competitive. I try to, most of my people, thank God, now I'm starting to, which makes you think like, I don't know if any guide, it takes you years to know, or anything in life, I'm sure, like, should I be here? Are we doing it? Like, what do we do? You can't do it the first 2 years. You don't know. You're faking it till you make it, so to speak. And then after a while, you're like, okay, whatever, either you should be here or not. But yeah, it's competitive. So, all I could say is with any competition, do the best that you could do and be your own, I'm fighting against myself. I'm always working on, there's nobody I'm looking at. Oh, I got to get these numbers of this. I know what I did yesterday. I want to beat yesterday's mark no matter what. And, I felt I got a good compliment the other day that somebody said to me, like, David, that's a good trait you have. But like, they're like, why did you have to catch 4 or 5? Like, because we caught 3 the other day. And like, and I hope that I could do it until the wheels fall off. But for now, and it's like you say, competition though, but I'm trying to to be on the podcast with you and I'm sure all these guides are feeling this, but you have to produce every time or you're falling behind. Like, yeah, you're going to get charters, but not to the level that we all want to have a dream to be the best we could be. You better, all that doesn't come in. You better have a prep accordingly each and every time for every trip, which is, it takes a lot. It takes a lot.
How do you think that you've been in the business for 7 years. How do you think that your marketing has changed with the fishing booker, with the trip advisor, with, I don't know, social media, your websites? How have things changed there for a guide like yourself that's active today? What are you doing today that you were not doing 7 years ago?
I'll tell you what, and I didn't understand it. When I first got in, nobody liked Fishing Booker. Nobody liked a lot of these agencies. And I'm like, why? Because I was the young guide and I didn't have anybody. So I needed business. So I got on these agencies with a very cheap price, giving them a very big commission, chartering for nothing. And I built my Fishing Booker. It's 55 reviews, 5 stars is now. And I've gotten great long reviews. I like to think I've done really well in it, to the point where you think that I would be getting calls, left and right, which I do get calls, but not to the degrees as the person that's on there that still gives them that huge percentage on that low rate. And now my worth is more. At the end of the day, I can't charge $400 for a 10-hour day to catch 3 tarpon. So mine is more obsolete on a lot of those agencies, even though they're doing very well. They put you to the back burner unless you give them accordingly. And you're kind of, I talked to them the other day, you're kind of forced to. You're choke cold out where you're like,
is there like a box you can check? Like, I want to go 10%, 20%, 30%.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it like that?
Yeah, exactly. 10, 20, 30. And I talked to the other guy, he gives 30. I gave 20 forever. And then I stopped that. And then as I slowed that down, because I was like, okay, my reviews are so high now. I'm 5-star. And look at all they catch, just fish off top of fish. No, you don't, because they put you to the back burner. Before I told them on the phone, they had the bells and whistles. Book now, David, this, when you give them the percentage. And I was on the number 1 in Miami for like a year. Like, I was always proud of myself. Oh, look at David, Saltwater, was number 1. But it's because of that. And as soon as I was like, you know what, you can't. Nobody can sustain that unless I talked to my other guy on the phone. And I'm like, your parents are paying for like and I hate to say it, but like, I'm like, there's no way you can. And he had a boat. He had like a boat. He had a 2 Yamaha 350s and like a big, he's going offshore. I'm like, there's no way you're charging that less than me to go offshore what are we doing? But
Right.
yeah, it's so now I get a lot of it from like this. I've noticed just social media and most importantly word of mouth. If you produce and you catch 4 tarpon or 5 tarpon in a trip, he's going to tell somebody around somebody, and they're going to, that's what you bet. That's why I like to produce more than anything. If they have a great trip, somebody's going to know about it. Usually.
Right. Yeah.
I like to
That's
think.
cool. So, that I would think that would be a place today that would be interesting for an older kind of fisherman to be in, competing at that digital age, like
Oh,
that Fishing Booker, TripAdvisor, things like that. And you are like really doing this as a business where somebody else might be doing it as kind of a, I'm going to try this for a couple of years and, I don't know. I
and
don't,
you see that absolutely.
no disrespect, but that does happen. Like
No,
people
and I don't. And you said it.
try this for a couple of years and see what happens, and they're willing to take, willing to give up 30% commission to get busy and get. But there's also, that's a good way for someone to get reps, right? Like you're not going to get any better unless you start chartering, and you're not going to charter at the highest rate that there is until you're pretty good,
Yeah,
until you're really good.
you don't
Like
deserve it. Yeah, you don't deserve it.
rate with no commissions. Like those guys, they've been doing it for a while and they're fishing with the same people over and over again. They don't need to pay a commission, right? Like that's the ultimate. That's where you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
But when you first get in an ultra competitive environment like Miami or a lot of places in the Keys or other places, I would imagine you got to give the commission like that.
Absolutely. No, it's the only way to go. I wouldn't change it for the world at the time of what I did, to get, like you said it perfectly. You get those reps. You need to be with people, know that what you think works doesn't work very soon, and you better have way more plans than you thought you had. So those certain things, and, you need to get it under your belt before you charge charge somebody, and God forbid they have a bad trip on a high premium rate like that. You better be worthy of it. You better, okay, this happened this one time, it ain't happened again. And that's what it happened recently. A couple of those guys that I've had it, which wasn't great on a winter. It happened not every single time, and they come in the wrong time, and you feel it like that second trip, and you're like, wow, that's an honor. We didn't do that great, but you want to come out with me again because you saw how hard I worked. And then you go and you produce for them, and you're like, yeah, and those are the best trips because you're like, you believed in me, and we did it this time.
How hard is it? Like when I was at the boat show, I called you to see if we could maybe do a evening trip and stuff, and we determined that like where you were and where I was just way too far away from one another with the traffic in Miami, which turns out we weren't really that far away from one another, but it was going to take me about an hour and a half to get to where you were, or you to get to me by car, like an hour and a half, right? To go not very far. So how does that work with you in Miami traffic and things like that, where you're located? I mean, is that a common thing? Like, okay, like the first thing you got to ask somebody is like, where are you? Because we get here.
Absolutely. First of all, I mean, unless, pretty much never is it even possible to pull an from like whatever it is, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning to make that 5 o'clock spot or 6 o'clock to make things. It's because it's just too much has to go down for me, particularly. I would say somebody else that's maybe stationed right there. But for me, I've got it doing it for so long where I make my edge. I think I've always said this, the edge on what I do is I get up at 3:30. I live out an hour away from where I go in Miami. I live in West Broward County. I trailer from West Broward County, which is Carter Andrews was on it. I had a show with him, and I talked where he couldn't believe that the commute, but the bottom line is I'm up at 3:30. I'm at the ramp by 5:30. So we're by usually an hour before light. Most of the time I'm getting my clients to the ramp. I'm like a little bit of a pain in the butt. Not for everybody. I don't get there at like 7:30 charter, 8 o'clock. We get mullet before the light comes up. I got my flashlight on the headlamp. We're we're doing this thing hardcore, and I've always been like that. So it beats all guides. There's nobody around, no traffic. And I'm out by 11 o'clock the latest, so it's like a 6, and that's how I'd get doubles and I'll go but just generally speaking, it's a unique thing because I don't like that. Yeah. I don't know how these guys that do it and have their guys come up at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock in Miami traffic from 5 to 8. And I've done it. I did it in Fishing Book for forever. Crazy. So much traffic.
On the water though, like it seems like I would think that those guys, and I don't know Miami, like I do not know Miami. I go to Miami every year and but I generally go to the boat show and then you do things around the boat show and you get out. I don't know Miami, but it does seem like maybe there would be some opportunity to come by water and pick somebody up, in the middle of downtown. I don't know though.
Yeah. And I have done that a ton, but there's a no wake sign. It takes an hour to get anywhere, and you could do it, but it's always it's a mission. Then you got to get to your spot from picking them up, but you're traveling the whole time.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. You got to, and I'm sure the good guides, I know of them at nighttime. Most of them trailer like me, most of them, but the smarter ones have now slowly caught on to, it is a nightmare and a half. You got to get your shrimp, which is most of the places are by the highway. So you have to stop at your shrimp place, deal with that, and then go. I hated the evening shrimp, because it's crazy. You're in 2 hours of traffic to go, and then you're dealing with a million boats. So I got I hate to say it, I go in a Spartan Miami where there's nobody around, and I'm the only one with my tarpon. So I'm the only one. So I like my little operation. I don't think it'll last forever because nothing lasts forever. It's lasted for me for like 20 years or plus, but that's why I'm very secret. But I want to take you, Tom. I definitely want to get you out there and do this.
We're definitely going to go one of these.
We're
days.
doing this.
But you also need to tell other people how they could experience this with you, and they promise that they'll keep a secret.
Like, yes.
Everybody listening to this podcast that wants to fish with David, you have to keep a secret. You can't tell everybody where you're going or what you're doing. But
no, it's a totally locked down thing.
We're going to have out there. I'm sure somebody's going to give you a call, and they promise that they'll keep a secret.
Love you, Tom. It's a Capt David Cohen, CAPT David Cohen, and then 954-684-4677, and the fish are biting now. So June, I have definitely spots open in June. So
how do you go into July and August? Do you still tarpon fish that time of the year?
Tarpon fish. I go but it's a big snook transition, which is nice. It's like it's fun for me because a big tarpon now. I'm tired of taming them and whatever. So there's a lot of mid-sized tarpon and the snook bite. The spawn happens in July and August here. So
nice.
More times than not, you get these big. You're fishing for 50-pound tarpon, but the big snook bite. Every year I get like two that are like 25, 30 pounds. So,
wow.
Or not two. I get you never know. Some more than that, but
that's awesome.
Whatever.
I'm going to give you a little more notice than calling you the afternoon that I want to go fishing this year. Maybe we should definitely try to figure that out. Maybe around the boat show, or I don't know. I come to Miami occasionally. We'll figure it out. I would
love that. I would love that, bro.
You guys want to go and experience a guy that has a tremendous amount of passion and knowledge and experience? Give David a call, man. He's ready to go. And he can take you around Miami. Lots of people go to Miami. Miami's a beautiful spot. And David's the man. So give him a call. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you
so much, bro.
And we'll be back with another guest just like David next week. So tune in. All right. See ya.